machucado? Ah, não, pelo amor de Deus. Eu entendo bem, porque eu já tive 120 quilos. Então...
Hola, hola, hola.
Are you in frame? Behind the back, you guys are. Or I can be standing, you can sit here. I can be standing.
Pensando esteticamente, os homens e as mulheres.
Brasil
e a pessoa que voltou a uma diferença.
Ready? Are we ready for the session? Yeah? Great, cool. So, welcome everyone. This is an emergency session that we decided to put together. Originally this was intended to be another session, but it got cancelled for some logistical reasons. And given that we had the chance to have it, now we're having a conversation with all these amazing people here who are going to introduce themselves now. And the subject that brings us together today is really worrying. There is a report that was issued by a commission in the Brazilian Congress that is speaking about pushing 8 new bills that are going to seriously undermine the protections that the Marco Civil is giving to internet users in Brazil. And well, given that this is such a new development, actually we heard about this like probably yesterday or the night of the day before yesterday. And well, so we are here to just talk to our Brazilian friends here, the experts on the field, to get a sense of what is going on, and then at the end try to strategize on some responses to that. So I'm just going to give the mic to our speakers here so they can introduce themselves like quickly, starting here.
Hello everyone, my name is Laura. I'm from Article 19 Brazil. Article 19 is a human rights organization with focus on freedom of expression.
Well, my name is Mário Viola. I'm from ITS in Rio de Janeiro, which is the Institute for Technology and Society, which is a Brazilian think tank. We work in the interaction between law, technology, and other societal aspects.
Hi everyone, my name is Denis Antoniali. I am one of the directors of Internet Lab, which is a think tank in internet law and policy based in São Paulo, Brazil.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here this morning. I'm Veridiana Limonti. I'm from a civil society organization in Brazil called Intervozes that works with media policies and also internet and human rights.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamila Venturini. I'm a researcher at the Center for Technology and Society at Fundação Getúlio Vargas in Brazil. We work since 2003 trying to research the impact, social, cultural, and economic impacts of ICTs.
Morning, everybody. My name is Carolina Rossini. I lead international work at PK, and I do open educational resources in Brazil and work on internet in Brazil.
So guys, I don't know who wants to go first on this, but in a nutshell, just tell us, probably you, Verdiana, on what is going on and what is the political context that enables this, because we know from 2014 that Brazil was, an example for the rest of the world with the Marco Civil, the internet, the civil rights framework, which is quite progressive and protected internet users' rights, privacy, freedom of speech. And right now, the situation seems to have flipped, on its back, and now it's something totally different. So please tell us what happened.
Okay. So these bills, they are part of a report of the work that was done in an inquiry commission in National Congress. And it's interesting to understand this report as part of a troubled political context that we have in Brazil and that we already had in last year, but now it's more complicated. But this inquiry commission started in August of 2015, so last year, and it was actually something that even the Brazilian government was suggested this issue to be discussed in an inquiry commission in National Congress, because there are a few, there is a limited number of inquiry commissions that can happen at the same time in the Chamber of Deputies. So they wanted to suggest an issue that wouldn't harm politically the federal government with corruption issues and things like that. So they suggested an inquiry commission about cybercrimes. But the interesting and sad thing is that the work of this inquiry commission in the final happened to give a result that is in the opposite direction that the policy that Dilma made for internet in Brazil, with Marco Civil and other discussions, especially with Marco Civil. So what we are facing now with a very conservative National Congress is a report with bad conclusions about privacy, freedom of expression in internet, and all the rights that we could guarantee and ensure with Marco Civil, and the idea that the internet is an environment for having rights and not an environment that you should surveil the users, and when in an environment that users are always potential criminals. So we had a pushback in the main idea about how internet should be regulated. And we've been following this commission, this inquiry commission, since last year, and we were already afraid about the probable results about it, because the commission discussed a lot of issues regarding pedophilia, regarding copyright crimes and this kind of things. And we didn't know exactly, especially because the Chamber of Deputies and the parliamentarians are not aware of our discussions here, the importance of privacy, the importance of freedom of expression in networks. So we are afraid about the possible results, and here they are. So this report wasn't approved yet in the inquiry commission. It was presented this week by the rapporteur, and it will probably be voted. It will probably be voted next week, around April 7 of April, and it's important to discuss here. The other panelists here will explain better what are the main issues, in the bills. But some of these bills really harm privacy rights and really harm freedom of expression in internet. And in the conservative shift that we are living in Brazil right now, the chances to get approved in the Chamber of Deputies, then the chance to get approved in the Senate are big, and then the Brazilian will be a bad experience in internet and not a reference as it was with Marco Civil. Mm-hmm. That's it.
So a short intervention by Carol, and then we go to Mario. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Well, as Veridiana said, we face a very difficult threat at this moment, especially because the heads of the two houses of the parliament, they are from the same political party and are against the government. So you can see how things will move fast or could move fast in both houses. I'll go through some provisions of the bills that the report from the inquiry commission presented that, let's say, affect the backbone of Marco Civil and other laws. I think the first one that I selected that caught my attention is the one that gives the possibility for the government to use 10% of the telecommunication supervision fund for financing police. So it was a fund created to promote internet and to ensure that the network have a good quality, and they use part of this money to finance police forces. Another one that's proposed to amend another law that gives jurisdiction to the federal police for any crime relating to a computer or the internet. So it's something that will pose some threats to normal use. Imagine that you will be using or maybe downloading a specific file, and then one day the federal police will knock on the door, and it's another risk because we don't know what will happen. And then there are some bills that propose to amend Marco Civil in terms of excluding the requirement of a court order for erasing or excluding a certain content for the web, so to shutting down certain content. Then when it relates to the honor of someone, so it's something that it could relate to a politician, for instance, the guy that says, well, it's violating my honor, and then they will shut down, and there is a risk for a threat for freedom of expression. Then there is another provision relates to this first one that obliges ISPs to monitor any content related to the first request of shutting down. So once a politician, for example, requests to a content to be shut down, then the ISP is obliged to monitor the whole similar content that's posted online. So they don't need to receive another request. They just have to be monitoring forever to see if any content, any similar content, because the law doesn't refer to equal content, it's similar. So maybe if just a part of this content is posted again, so the ISP has to monitor, and the risk of being considered liable for that. Another important issue is that they propose to include IP addresses and account information, so that police, law enforcement authorities, they can request such information from telcos, financial institutions, ISPs, credit card companies, and even the electoral tribunal without any court order. So it's another possible risk. There is another provision that I think it's also important to mention, is that they propose to include a specific provision in Marco Civil to allow courts to order ISPs to block internet applications. So we've been facing some court decisions in that respect. We had the case of WhatsApp, and we had the arrest of the Facebook executive this year, and then now they are trying to put a specific provision in Marco Civil aligned for that. And well, those are the main provisions in the bills that they are proposing, but there are other bills that they refer to in the report. So they're suggesting that some bills that are already under discussion in the Parliament, that they should receive a special treatment. So I don't know what they mean by special treatment. It could be to receive a label of an urgency procedure, and then they would move quite fast. So there are bills relating to pedophilia, to data retention, to disclosure of images and personal information, cyberbullying, and so on. So there are other 6 bills of law that are already under discussion in the Parliament. And they also suggest in this report that the central bank, the federal police, and the banks in general, they should share more information for fighting fraud and so on. But it's important to highlight that in Brazil we don't have a data protection law, so we have many sectoral rules dealing with data protection, but we don't have anything dealing with data protection for the government. So if the central bank will share more information, or you collect more information, even the federal police, it can represent an important threat to privacy. So it's really a moment that we have to think about, and that's why we organize this. We co-organize this emergency session, because it's an important threat to the internet in Brazil.
You know, what you say, it gives me the chills, and I guess it will give the chills to anyone. It sounds like all rights concessions in one package, in one omnibus bill, right? Because it touches almost all of the issues. You know, you have things related to violent speech. You have, because this is a typical thing, right? That happens, especially in Latin America. You will have an omnibus bill that probably includes some really worrying issues and pressing issues, like child pornography, like internet fraud, like countering violent extremism online. But then they use these really good and commendable objectives in order to bring these terrible things happening. So, Caro, do you have any thoughts about this? And then probably we can start jumping on, because I'm still interested in how this, because yes, the political context is clearly a way of looking at why these changes are so big in policy, right? But I'm also really interested in what is the reasons why the lawmakers are trying to give more power to the courts, okay? Because I've heard that there is this feeling in some places in Brazil that internet companies that are based abroad are not really that good in collaborating with the government. So that also causes like this tension, you know, where the state and the government wants more power in order to force companies to comply with things, even just with jail and stuff. So.
Thank you, Javier. And that's actually a perfect linkage for what I wanted to say, because I actually want to give a bigger angle for all of us to understand why this makes sense to be an emergency session on RightsCon, and why it makes sense to have more people rather than only Brazilians paying attention to that. Because at the end of the day, as you were just saying, this affects not only Brazilians, but also American companies, for example, that do work in Brazil. So recently we had a Facebook executive put in jail for a couple of hours. Last year we had a Google executive in jail for a couple of hours, and that thing goes on. Of course, we all, and we are all here are lawyers, we do want to do process, right? So we do want courts that understand what they are doing, and then we have a responsibility to train better our judges. But we do want also compliance with court orders when there is due process in place, right? So we need to balance what our courts do with what is needed to make sure that we have Marco Civil being enforced, because there was a gigantic compromise in society, and that did include companies to accept Marco Civil in a certain way. So if you keep challenge a legislation that was so much fought for and did create legal security, you then face this type of challenge that I'm calling crumbling democracy, because this is worse than even before Marco Civil. This is challenging not just Marco Civil, but also the Brazilian Constitution. It's criminalizing speech in a way that was never done in Brazil before. And that creates problems for us users, but also for companies acting in Brazil, because it's putting companies in a way that they have to police content, they have to take down, and they're gonna be fined, and their executives will put in jail. So I think it's very important for all of us to pay attention and to react to this as fast as possible. All of the groups that work on the ground in Brazil, and the groups like Intervozes and Article 19 that actually walk the corridors of Congress every day, they have been fighting for this for a while, you know, and now the report is there. And again, it's a political game, and we need to learn to play this political game and really push back and stop this report now next week and counterattack, because it's going to be, Brazil is an important geopolitical force in the region, is an important geopolitical force internationally, internet governance. We cannot, as a group of responsible advocates for digital rights, allow that this moves forward in Brazil. This is going to be bad for the whole world as example. It can be a domino effect for the worst.
Yeah, I like this remark that you did about how this consensus that brought all stakeholders together for the Marco Civil, when some of them fail in order to protect it, because the way to protect the Marco Civil is also abiding by it, right? So if you fail to protect it, then the consequences sometimes go this way, right? The way that we're talking about. Yeah, and they allow from people and certain lawmakers to say, hey, the Marco Civil is not working as it is. We make it stronger, or you know, and try to give it some teeth, and that is certainly going to go against the rights of users. So who wants to go next, Dennis?
Yeah, one thing that I would add to what Carol was saying is that not only the role of courts is important, but also it's important to see that in those bills, law enforcement is also being put in a very privileged position. And particularly now that we see in Brazil a general trend, I would say, disregarding due process. So there's this this movement that it's commendable, that this fight against corruption, but that just puts a very strong narrative on the role of law enforcement and how it should be necessary to give the tools to the police and to law enforcement authorities, and without questioning when there can be places for moments for abuses, and that's very bad. So I think it's really important to use this opportunity also to raise awareness of how dangerous it can be to put law enforcement in those positions. Police do fight criminals, but they also need limits. And that is something that I think it's missing in the debate, and we have to bring it, yes.
Actually, it's a law enforcement without enforced due process. So it's not a law enforcement.
It's the enforcement of some other power.
Exactly, yeah.
We have also the argument of the Olympic Games in Rio, which puts, let's say, a different sauce in this discussion, because they can argue that, oh, we need to comply with international standards and so on. So they're also using the argument of the Olympic Games to push for this cyber.
But the
crime
most international
regulation.
standards, the most important international standards are human rights and necessary and proportionate principles and other things that we have been talking about in RISECON that's failing here. So the intervention there. And
can I add something? It's interesting to see how most of these issues were extensively debated during the process of the Marco Civil, until the Marco Civil was finally approved. From the first cybercrime bill that we had, the Azeredo law, that started to be rejected and discussed back in 2007, 2008. And most of these things are being reintroduced in the legislative discussion, despite the fact that we had a very extensive public debate about them, and Brazilians and citizens who could participate in the debate apparently rejected all these suggestions, right? And also during the hearings that happened in this process, in this recent process, civil society were heard, academia were heard, sometimes companies, people from the technical community, but the report and the proposals that we see do not reflect any balance regarding what these other sectors presented. So usually the justification for these bills say, well, law enforcement authorities say this is not effective, this is not working, without presenting any empirical data to justify this, or without giving any further consideration about these mechanisms. And you see distortions like them asking intermediaries to not just remove content in 48 hours, but also remove all the copies or all possible copies of that content without a court order, without even, without considering what, if that's possible or not, basically imposing intermediaries to monitor the content, and it's amazing. It's very, it's shocking to see how all this process of the Marco Civil could have led to more knowledge in legislators about these issues, or how these things should be discussed, and apparently it didn't. And we see that back. Just to add a quick thing about what you said regarding what are the reasons, what's moving on that. There is a recommendation on the report. Besides the bills that they propose several recommendations for specific commissions to discuss specific subjects, right? It's a very long report. We had little time to see it, but we could find, for instance, a recommendation that basically reflects something that the MPIA was lobbying for a long time, which is a broad exception to the net neutrality principle in order to enable website blocking when there is intellectual property violation. So they basically incorporated that as a suggestion, and despite the fact that this has also been extensively discussed, not only in the domestic level, but international level. So these forces continue to operate very clearly, and I don't know. We could go deeper in what are the problems with all these recommendations, but maybe that's enough.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about this is that you can see that this is like the mother of all the terrible ideas together in several bills in a package, you know, and even it's even long, which make it worse, because sometimes that can be interpreted like a strategy, because who is going to care about the 250 pages report?
Yeah, but one thing that it's interesting is that having 8 different bills makes it very hard to understand the big picture and what would actually change. Because one thing it would be like to discuss one bill that changes everything, and then you could more easily realize what's doing. But now you're just introducing these new articles all spread all over, and it's very hard to notice how bad or how dangerous they are collectively.
Yeah, but the interesting thing as well is that many of the things that are being discussed here are also parts of discussions that are happening all over the world, right? So we have a monster right now that where it's really easy to get mad at, you know, and to fight against. But this is really important to have this idea in mind, that the things that are happening here are just a sample of what is also happening everywhere in the world. So just for a second, I would like to have a little more of
Just
insight.
one thing on substantial, because Laura is going to talk a lot of the strategy. One thing that's also important, like US is leading now an initiative called Global Connect to connect the next 1.5 billion. This is something that we have been fighting in Brazil forever. Veridiana in IDEC and now in Intervozes, like we are fighting for something that's called the implementation of the broadband plan in Brazil forever. And we have been fighting for the for the funds that were deposited since the privatization of the telco companies in the late 90s, And now they want to free some of this funding to actually support the 10% to support police. So we have been fighting for decades to have better broadband plan, and now without discussion of priorities and this long-term public policy, they want to revert the funds for something, for bad law enforcement without due process. So I want to call attention to this because it's really serious, you know, it's really like a crumbling democracy, you know.
Yeah, just one comment, because I think Jamila, she mentioned the Azevedo bill that was something that Marco Civil was presented as a solution or a fight or an option against that. And in the report, they refer to the Azevedo bill as something good. So they almost cry why it was not approved that way, just 2 articles left. And then they are trying to, let's say, to bring back to life this Azevedo bill, which is an important threat to our internet freedom and all the rights that we defend and we fight for. And that Brazil was, let's say, put in an international benchmark position for that. And now they are trying to move in a very succinct way.
Wow. So now for a word on strategy on how we can understand the process, the legislative process, and what can be done there, you know?
When Marco Civil was approved, it seemed that it was a consensual, but who was behind the stage saw how difficult it was to keep the test and guarantee the good provisions. And the situation is very serious, and we really need support of the international community to reject this report. We have to what can happen now. This report can be rejected, not approved by the Commission. But if you count the votes, it's not a progressive commission, so the chance that it will be rejected is very, very low. But we can campaign, and we can add efforts to find some deputy or a group of deputies to present an alternative report. That is possible. So I think this is the best option for us. And
They've done a report, but I don't know if they're already working with this possibility of using the report as an alternative report to the Commission.
Yeah, and maybe we could join forth to tell the deputies this is not a project or alternative report of one politician, but it's society civil claim about these issues. So I think it's very possible. And for the international community, I think if they could help us campaign, the Brazilian Congress is, I think, I'm not sure if you agree, but they are very sensitive for international pressure. So if you could tweet it, direct them, or send emails, we can arrange this kind.
To organize this, and
it will. If you could send an email for the Commission, it will really help. It's not something, oh, I'm not sure if it will help or not. No, it will help.
And I have a question for you. What about the engagement of companies, right? Because you said that when the consultations were held, the companies were also ignored in their contribution.
Associations like the Internet Association here in the U.S., the Internet Association in the U.S., which is the association of ISPs and platforms, saying we reject this in Brazil because this is going to create costs, transaction costs, and insecurity for us. We need civil society here and everywhere rejecting this, because I'm afraid that even presenting a similar contradictory report will still open the door for discussion cybercrimes, which is something that we already said we don't want to be discussed this way. Of course, we're going to do whatever we need to do as an insider game, but we also have to play the outsider game.
So let's say that the report is approved anyway, okay? How does the process continue? Is it going to be voted in the House and then goes to the Senate, or there is a special procedure that is going to make it faster, or what is the idea of timelines and stuff like that?
The Brazilian Congress is so complex, but I believe it will have 5 sessions to be approved, and the sessions are happening very fast because there is the impeachment issue, so it will be adopted in, I believe, in
the report to be approved in the commission, right?
Yeah.
5 sessions. Probably it will be next week or something.
Yeah.
And then what happens? It's adopted, and then?
As I know, probably it will follow the regular processing in National Congress then, but we don't know if it will be created a special commission, because when a bill has to pass through a lot of commissions, Consumer Commission, Technology Commission, they sometimes, the Constitutional Commission always has to pass, so they create a special commission to make it faster, and probably it will happen. Then it will pass through a special commission in Chamber of Deputies, then to the plenary, and then goes to the Senate. And if there is any change in the Senate, then come back to the Chamber of Deputies.
Okay.
We had a cybercrime law called Carolina Dickman, and it was approved in 1 month. All the
Since we are in a political game, we need help, because what happens since there are 8 draft bills that will become actual bills if the report is approved, they can actually break the bills in even more pieces and separate them through all the commissions. So depending on how much they want to inflict more pressure in this current government, because at the same time, there are a lot of folks here that still support the process in Dilma's government. So they have to be distracted then of supporting that process to then fight this report. So civil society in Brazil has grown over the past 10 years, but it still are few with very few resources. So imagine if you have to act like tiny pieces and follow this into tiny commissions. In general, passes through 3 to 5 commissions, but if it's declared urgent, can pass even faster, like Carolina Dickman and so on. So it's a game.
Yeah, just another point to add. Maybe it seems a long process, but regarding that, we have a president in the Chamber of Deputies that is a surveillance guy. Again, it's net neutrality and everything. It can happen very fast. And we have, of course, progressive deputies that can help us, but now they're really concerned and with all their attentions turned to the impeachment process. So we don't know. This can go very fast, and we don't know even if we will be able to mobilize deputies to pay attention to this, considering that there are a lot of biggest things happening in National Congress right now.
So they are the minority in the Congress.
Yeah, and they are the minority.
That's the largest political party,
Yeah.
which is led by the president of the chamber. Yeah, well, we have put online a petition yesterday, let's say, against this initiative of the Inquiry Commission. It would be good if everyone signs the petition and shares with your friends in tweets and your net. So, yeah, in English, yeah, but it's in Portuguese, but it's the general idea is we can also share a test in English, which explains more or less the details of this report from the Inquiry Commission. I think, Javier, you have the links, and I sent to Brett, and maybe...
From RightsCon is a RightsCon rejection or something has under the RightsCon brand, because then you bring together everybody that's here. So I'm asking help for
I
access
think
now
Brett
and the
will mention in
organizers
the
to-
closing speech. Yeah, I think you mentioned the
like,
case of Brazil.
We
and-
need to call attention, and we need your help, guys.
Yeah, so one of the things that I would like to clarify for the people that are watching us online or in the video is that when you mentioned impeachment processes, I don't, there's people that are not really...
Taking the president out of the power.
Yes, no, but there's people who didn't know that right now there's an impeachment process going against the president of Brazil because of their accusations of corruption and stuff like that. So that's what has the attention of lawmakers distracted, and it's like a good strategy from this guy in the deputy chamber, you know, to have this issue
That's the
straightened
best
out.
moment for passing a bill bills like that, you know. That's,
So do we have questions or comments in the audience or in the RightsCon Brazil hashtag? There we have one.
Yeah. I was just curious, a lot of this reminds me of the SOPA talk that we had in the U.S. and Stop Online Piracy. Basically, what really was effective at stopping it was...
Yeah, I was just going to repeat the question for the recording, but anyway, yeah, you can have a microphone there. Yeah.
I was just asking, basically, what was really effective in stopping the U.S. was, or the Congress from passing SOPA, was getting Facebook and Google to black out their pages and say, hey, this is a terrible bill that's about to pass. Here's how you can contact your congressman and let them know that you don't want that. Has there been any discussion with you guys about Facebook.com.br and Google.com.br being able to do something like that? Because it seems like they have a vested interest in this and they wouldn't want to do it either.
Well, the report happened yesterday, so all the networks are... The report came out yesterday, so all the networks are being activated as we speak. So we hope that that's a great idea. Thank you for the reminder of those actions, because we do have Wikimedia in Brazil. It's a strong community, and Facebook and Google and Twitter and WhatsApp, all those folks. So yeah, great idea.
And my other question was, is your goal to kill the bills, the various bills, or fix them? Is it fixable? Just kill them all together?
That's to kill the bills. I think there is just one bill.
I
kill bill.
understand.
No, there is just one bill that seems to be good. That's the one that intends to include digital education in the National Educational Plan. That's the only one out of 8, you know. That's the only one that we could leave there. But I don't think, because it's part of a general report, so I think we have to fight against the report, and all the bills, they should die in the commission.
I don't even want to compromise, because if they say, oh, do you want the education? So give me the crime.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's better to kill all the bills.
And we're back to that discussion that was kind of hot in RightsCon about having rights as trading cards, right? It's like, do you want to have education? Then you have to give, security or net neutrality. You want privacy? Then you have to give a freedom of expression, or, So that's quite a mess. We have another intervention here. But before that, I just wanted to add something. Is that I really like the idea of having this campaign with multi-stakeholders there, but also probably not only to kill these bills, because it can happen that they get spread in different bills, so probably it could be something like more a vigilant thing, to have an idea of what are the rights that we need to protect, besides what is the bill now, because they're going probably to spread it in, 17 bills, and then there's something bad is happening anyway. Natalia?
It's more like a comment, and I'm looking forward to discuss that further with you after the meeting, but I feel that we really need to make sure that we frame it in a way that the population also understands the threats. And because if it's only civil society, politicians will be less likely to be pressured, especially at this time, I guess, with this political situation.
Mm-hmm.
And also, as a side note only, I might change my mind because I need to read it properly, but I'm actually less concerned about the Fistel provision because they don't ever use it at all. So it's like it's gonna be their issue, Maybe somehow that could be a bargaining power in the future too, because the police is gonna fight for that money. They're probably not gonna get it anyway. So I'll be more concerned about the substantial parts of
Just some comments.
Yeah, actually, that's why we wanted to go beyond what's right there in the bill, right?
Regarding your first comment, I totally agree, because in Marcos' Civil experience, our experience is that raise awareness in the society is the way to raise awareness among politicians, right? Because they are pushed and then they start to pay attention about the issue and see what bad things can happen. But the second comment, I agree with you regarding the fact that they are not used because they are always used for primary superávit, however. Surplus, okay, surplus in Brazil. But for me, it's a distortion of the conception of the fund, because the fund should be used for the supervision of the quality of services and the compliance with the users' rights in Brazil, and then you use it for surveil the users, you know? So it's like, and probably with the pressure of the federal police, then they will use at least 10% of this fund to do it, and not to do what the fund should really finance, you know. So it's a.
No, I agree. It's
Just
that
to add, it's a very specific. I think we all have to think better about that. But the provision is very specific, saying that it's 10% in order to organize specific branches of the police in the state. So it's not that, of course, the type of investigation will follow this type of rules that they are trying to push for. But it's not that much. If we think about it, what they are saying is it would be like some type of support, but it's
So
to think about.
you had also a question from the ReichsCon Brazil hashtag, right? Is it there or?
Yeah, no, I think I lost it.
So that was already addressed, right?
Yeah.
We have more, I think. Our hashtag monitoring there is.
So there's a question that says, what is the basic strategy for the digital rights community if Dilma is blocked and Temer and Kula plan?
So what's the, no, that's right. It's like, what's the political strategy if Dilma is impeached or blocked, I guess, right? And then Cunha wins.
Actually, now our strategy is not let Dilma be impeached, but probably.
It doesn't affect the strategy for fighting against these bills because, well, we don't know if she'll be
So who
excluded
here,
from the government, but I think we should fight in a way. I think the strategies we presented here are the
of course.
ones that
and
will
who here
apply.
is worried with a new wave of refugees? Brazilians are super happy people. So if this pass, please open your countries for us because we're gonna flew out of Brazil. Because like anything that we're gonna say in the internet is gonna be criminalized.
But in serious way, I think that the most important thing is to show that this is not a government thing. Marco Civil was not a government thing or a workers' party thing. It was a civil society thing. And it's important to say that protecting privacy, protecting freedom of expression in internet is something that all parties should care. It's not a left or right thing, but sometimes it is, of course. But it's important to say that this is a society claim. It worked with Marco Civil, and we hope that work with all these bills that can pass in National Congress now.
Well, I think it's important. Just one remark: we should try to manifest your support to our, let's say, our initiative, and we'll try to put the petition online in RightsCon page to see if everyone can adhere to this initiative to try to fight against those bills and the report from the Inquiry Commission. Thank you.
yeah.
I want to tell that APC is just putting now a statement to reject that. So it's great because APC is a global NGO. So as many as those we get, the best.
Yeah, it's great that all the support is coming out like instantly, you know, just in a second. So that's actually the yes. Yes, global problem. Totally. So, yeah, that's the reason why we have this conference. So, a comment here.
Hello. So, sorry I arrived late, so I don't know if you already discussed that. I'm Brazilian as well. I'm not huge believer in the international system, the UN system, the OAS, and so, but it's what I work with. And I think that in this particular situation, regarding what's going on now in Brazil, that the media is not paying attention to anything else that is not Dilma, and so maybe we should also invest in taking this situation to the UN special rapporteurs, to the OAS special rapporteurs, at least as a way to have a boomerang effect, to have the attention of the media inside, to have the Congress being pressured by it. So in this specific situation, I would make an effort to have not only a statement from the special rapporteur, but, for instance, a statement to be delivered by NGOs with consultative status at the UN Human Rights Council, or to give international visibility as a way to pressure those internally. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the UN also. I mean, not only
Yeah, the
Maina
rapporteur is already
yeah, but maybe
he's already aware of this problem. So we received all the material in English and Portuguese. There is a Brazilian working in the office of the Human Rights Commission working with him. So he's also aware, and also the OES they are trying to get a statement from the Inter-American rapporteur on freedom of expression. So we are trying to cover all areas.
Yeah. Edson Lanza? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be there next week on hearings.
I think we can close. Yeah. So, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Javier.
Yes, unless we have any more comments or questions or thoughts, ideas, everything's good here, guys. Okay. So, final remarks? Well, that's fine. Okay, then.
Just to say, well, thank you, Access, for organizing this, for giving the space for us to talk about this. It was very important to give visibility to the topic.
No, but thank you guys. Thank you guys, because you are the guys there and fighting for this, you know. The only thing we can do is just to help so you can, I don't know, have more direct contacts and stuff like that, you know, to fight this. So thank you, everyone.
And if you have any ideas, let us know, and just act by yourself. We need everybody working on this as much as possible.
Yeah, and also please, if you follow the Access Now social networks, we're going to post information on how you can support the groups directly. So we're going to, because if we mention all the web pages, probably it's going to take too much time or people won't remember. So if you pay attention to Access Now Twitter account, at Access Now, we're going to link all of the work that all the organizations are doing on a more permanent basis that we can. So we're all invited to follow that. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Kill Bill.
Kill Bill.
Mira, ellos no escribieron, entonces no sabían.
Para otra sesión.
Ah, vosotros, yo tengo que